Yes. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Montana Multipreneurs. I'm your host, Nina Lund. Joining me today is a very special guest, Lisa-Marie Hanson. Lisa-Marie, or LM as I call her, is the Chief Learning Officer at TalentTelligent, as well as lead speaker coach of TEDxMinneapolis. LM is joining us today to share her insights as they relate to leadership and coaching executive development. LM, welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. Hello from Minneapolis.
It's so great to have you. As I mentioned a little bit before, I like to share with our audience a little bit about how I know the guests on our show. Most I've met in person, most everyone, either before or after, as it turns out. I met LM many years ago in person for some executive coaching on 360 certifications and tools. That was at that time Corn Ferry out, and we were just reminiscing Coronado Island in California. So since then, I've also been certified by LM through the TalentTelligent suite of leadership development and coaching tools. So it's so wonderful to see you. And again, thank you for being a guest today,
Sure.
LM.
It's my pleasure.
I
Well, let's talk about maybe the work stuff and then I'll add maybe about the volunteering piece. So, I started my career in my 20s and I was studying industrial and organizational psychology at Florida International University. I transferred from the University of Minnesota to elope with my husband. And so it really upset my educational process, and my parents were not thrilled. But I can say to you that I had such a wonderful opportunity because I was doing the psychology stuff and I was thinking I was going to take a traditional path to human resources. So my first job was at Saks Fifth Avenue in Bal Harbour, Miami. And I was a sales associate and I covered people's lunch hours the whole time I was studying psychology. And there was a wonderful leader who was watching me, in fact, a couple of them. And it was wonderful because they asked me for my capstone project in training and development. And it had been an instructional design program. And little did I know they were going to send that to New York. And I was then transferred to the mothership, as my husband likes to say, in corporate training. But Saks Fifth Avenue on Fifth Avenue in New York was just amazing to experience. And so I worked in corporate training. I did instructional design. I handled all of our branch stores. And I've done director of training work, certainly there. I've done corporate university work in other locations. I've done leadership development. I do a lot of high potential development, a lot of succession planning. And when I was doing some succession planning at a place where I was a practitioner, I happened to meet a man named Bob Eichinger from a company called Lominger. And he was partnered with a researcher called Mike Lombardo. And they were teaching us about succession planning. And I'm sure I asked a bunch of silly questions, but I still remember him smiling and telling me about the psychology behind everything. And I was just so curious about it. And then I found myself at a crossroads, and someone said, don't look for a job, call the person you always wanted to work for. So I called Lominger and I started to work there the next day. How's that?
wow.
And it was a little Camelot, if you will. There were a lot of people doing good work. We were meeting clients who were trying to do wonderful things with their talent management system. They wanted to make it simple. They wanted to make it easy, define what success looked like. And then Korn Ferry came along and purchased Little Lominger, and I had the privilege of working for them for another 13 years, I think. And I had the opportunity, as you know, to certify practitioners around the world. I think I've certified over 20,000 people who do human resources or coaching, like you just mentioned, 360 coaching and being able to help people develop and grow in their careers. And then after right at the beginning of COVID, Bob Eichinger in his 80s called me and said, I'm thinking about refreshing my career and doing things that now that I've seen and have some lessons learned, I've partnered with Roger Pearman, who is a personality expert. Would you help me do that again? And I jumped at the chance. It was just a wonderful opportunity to study with both of those gentlemen and be in a place where we're talking about best practices, meeting people like you, and helping organizations thrive with development, whether it's leadership development, etc.
Wonderful. And maybe a little bit of a side note, the individuals that you mentioned, Eichinger, um, Roger Puman, they are, I tell people they are, I mean, the 9 box
Yeah.
is
Learning agility,
learning
succession
agility.
planning. Yeah.
Our HR and leadership friends that listen to this will know those names. I mean, that is huge,
Yeah.
significant.
It's it's another Camelot.
Yeah. And so you are still within TalentTelligent then.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
I do all the certifications for people. I do anything that's learning related or work with coaches to help them deliver on their feedback better. But most of the time, I'm running the certifications. We do e-learning and then there's live sessions. So I just had a session today where a practitioner in a university setting was thinking about how he was going to define success better and do his talent recruiting differently.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so so you do the certification for practitioners such as
Hmm.
myself and organizations, and you do executive coaching as
I do.
well as part
I
of
do.
that
Yeah.
for your clients. Let's talk a little bit about that because a lot of our listeners are business owners and entrepreneurs.
Sure.
They may have come up through a corporate structure where they got some development or coaching, or it may be School of Hard Knocks, lessons
Sure.
learned, what they've tried. So, what do you find with leadership coaching? Kind of some common themes for leaders as
Sure.
takeaways.
Sure. That's a really big question. I would say most organizations struggle in the beginning to define what does success really look like. Or unfortunately, sometimes people will come into our offices and say, Joni doesn't fit here. She's not doing well. And when you say why, doesn't fit the culture. Is square peg in a round hole, these esoteric kinds of things that don't really have real behavioral meaning to them. So I think the psychology of industrial and organizational psychology puts words to that. So when you're able to create a common language, that changes everything. I've been with organizations where we tried to create our own little custom model of, oh, I like this word, or I like that word. Or even at Saks, we were talking about being fashion forward and this other thing called fire in the belly. We knew it when we saw it, but nobody knew what we meant by it. When we started to use a science-based model, you start to get words like presence or positivity or growth mindset or using humor or self-confidence or managing individuals differently. The words that define success in behavioral terms so that when you see it, you can describe it as opposed to, I'm trying to crawl into somebody's skin and say, you're not positive enough. It's hard to have a common language because then you can have your recruiters look for that. Once you've defined it and you talk about it, you can have recruiters look for it. I spent a lot of time being a recruiter where they just wanted me to find somebody fast. I would find warm bodies. I didn't know what a success profile looked like. So when you can recruit to it, that's a big deal. Then you start to be the employer of choice in your marketplace. When you can coach to it like you and I do, the ability to create development plans is big. People want to learn and grow. So this idea of leadership development, or I'm going to call it any development, one of the biggest adjustments that's happened in the science since, I'm going to say 15 years ago, was one size fits all competency models really isn't a thing anymore, because it was like getting a dress off the rack. It didn't fit right. It didn't, everybody would say, oh, that's not me. A strategic mindset, I don't do that. I'm an individual contributor. So when we move to leveled libraries, we know what an individual contributor, the person who does the heavy lifting in an organization, doesn't have direct reports. We know what success looks like for them. Managers, the people who get things done through people. And Nina, I don't know if you've had a bad manager ever. We won't name names here, but those are the things that stay with you. Those are indelible marks. You probably learn a lot from a bad manager and think, heck, I don't want to do something like that to my people. So the successful nature of what makes a high-performing people manager with direct reports is a big deal. And then I'm going to say top of the house leadership. When people say to me leaders, I want to make sure we're talking about success at all levels. And there are top of the house leaders who really need to create a compelling vision, who need to wrap people around that, who need to have this presence, who need to steer the ship, if you will, and make sure that the whole enterprise is going in the right direction, either for their shareholders or for their equity partners or owners. So defining success, I think, is one of the biggest elements to help human resources or a company, for anyone who might be listening, to be able to say, how can I use this stuff? Have a language that really describes success. And you don't have to make your own up. It's been known. Science has told us that for decades. We know what that is. Just kind of like an accountant knows how to do accounting,
Right.
talent practitioners know how to do talent. So,
Right. Right. No, I love that. And talking the lingo, like you say, we can all be calling something different things, but
yeah,
it's all correlates at the end of
yeah,
the day.
yeah,
To that, you talked about the individual contributors.
yeah,
And what I love about a lot of the methodology in the coaching world is it isn't just for executive
no,
leaders or managers, people managers. It's also for individual contributors, whether or not they want to be promoted to be people
yes.
managers.
The
Um,
heavy lifters, they're the biggest group in an organization, are the people who don't have direct reports.
right.
And I don't know about you, but I coach a lot of what I'll call the new generation of workers, people leaving college or starting their careers. They expect to be developed. They
Mhm.
expect to be able to learn and grow, even if what you just said is really important. Maybe they're saying, I don't know that I want to be a manager, but I want to be the best in what I'm doing. What does that look like? Well, we know that that looks like informing others. You don't keep secrets, you tell people what you're doing. We know that means being coachable, being able to ask for feedback, positive and constructive. And unfortunately, forgive me, university systems, but we reward individual performance and grading. So, this idea of maybe I don't want to tell Susie, my peer, what I'm doing because it's none of her business isn't the best way to go. It's about greasing the skids and informing people so that everyone can perform better. And I think everybody, no matter what level you're at, deserves a development plan, knowing that the organization is investing in them and wanting them to be the best that they can be, because gosh, we're at work more than we're at home. I don't know if you've done the calculations, but why wouldn't you want to be the best that you can be? And if you want to be promoted, that's a great way to do it. But at the same time, knowing what you want for yourself in your career and getting coached to that, I think is the right of a worker.
Right. Love that. And so you touched on some of the competencies along the way. And
Sure.
have you seen, like, is there a common theme you see with the kind of bridges across all levels,
Mhm.
regardless of position or
Yes.
organization?
That's a great question. Yes. And there are actually 7 common things. I don't know if I can recite them today, but there are 7 behaviors. I guess I'm going to use the word behavior because the wording changes. So maybe creativity at the individual contributor level looks a little different than creativity and the wording of that at a senior level. So there's creativity, there's about conflict, there's knowing yourself and self-awareness. Those are just some of the common things that really cross all the levels. Bringing your best self to work and managing yourself is going to show up at every level that you're at, because you've got to play to win, play to put points on the scoreboard, bring that your best self. Everybody knows somebody who goes, boy, I don't know if they're here to play today. So how does that cross? So there's seven that are behavioral similarities across the levels, but interestingly enough, they're not worded the exact same. So let's just say mindfulness, knowing how your brain works. The neuroscience of that is important, because you have to make good choices for yourself. I'll give a personal example. Maybe somebody says something at the Thanksgiving table that you don't like so much. So are you going to get mad? Are you going to retreat? Are you going to blow up? Are you going to not talk to them? Are you going to cancel them on social media? So this idea of how you react and how you manage your brain and your volitional choices are really what mindfulness is. And mindfulness shows up in different forms at every level. Now, I thought you were going to ask me, or maybe this is where your question was going, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there are things that people in general are not good at. Things like conflict, we just mentioned that. That has been low in normative data, and just to define what normative data is what are most people good at or not good at? And we have data and research like that that explains that. Most people are good at delivering results. Most people are good at delivering at or above expectations. Most people are good at knowing their metrics, because those are performance requirements for the job that you either do or you get fired. But there's a lot of stuff that a lot of people are not good at, because they're maybe not rewarded as aptly, like conflict management or collaboration or meeting people where they are. I hear so many senior leaders that I coach that say things like, I treat everybody exactly the same. I'm fair. And you think, okay, but did Joni need something different from you than John did? How do you meet Joni where she is so that she can be the best performer within your team? That's managing individuals differently. How do you meet people where they are and tend to their needs? And most people, I'll say at managerial levels, are not good at that. That's been at the bottom of norms for a long time. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, it does, absolutely. And I'm glad that you raised it as well. Uh, you did mention one behavior
Mm-hmm.
that I think is underrated, and in our training you mentioned it too, and that's humor. Um, so is that really a legit competency?
Heck yeah. Absolutely. It's funny. It's been on traditional competency models from, boy, the 90s. The idea here that a light touch can really change the climate, the tenor, the way it feels to work for someone. And we're not talking about yucking it up all the time or making fun of people or shaming people or anything like that. It's a lighter touch. And the research shows that humor is something that binds people together, especially when a leader or a manager can laugh at themselves. Oh, yeah, I messed that up. Well, go figure. That kind of lighter touch really changes things. And I don't know if you've noticed this even in life. Sometimes the most dire, terrible situations. I remember my college roommate being in the hospital, and somebody made an inappropriate, silly joke, and we all laughed for just a moment in that dire situation, and it made the room less heavy, and it made us remember why we loved each other. And humor, the science continues to tell us again and again that that should be on there beyond the competency list. Humor is showing up. Using humor, it is in the leadership one. Using humor is on the individual contributor, and I know it's on the manager level as well.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
I think about some of my favorite and most memorable working experiences and environments, and one of my most favorite, I was not that they were comedians, but
Yeah.
everybody was a little bit of a character and just could laugh at themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it trickled down from the top. And so it was very
Mm-hmm.
genuine and authentic,
Mm-hmm.
um, and appropriate use of humor. So
Mm-hmm.
let's talk a little bit about your volunteer with experience with TEDx Minneapolis.
Thank you, because I was just thinking there's a lot of TED Talks about humor
Okay.
and the interesting element that that impacts people, how it impacts people's self-awareness. So there's a lot on TED Talks as well. But TED Talks, I hope your audience knows what a TED Talk is. A TED Talk is a beautiful learning experience that's under 18 minutes on a variety of topics, and it's meant to create an idea worth sharing, which is the original tagline. But TED Talks is a lot, we call it Big TED. And then there are cities around the world that have a TEDx license. And a TEDx license is to be able to create voices worth amplifying efforts within your own community. So I got involved about 8, 9 years ago, and that story is kind of interesting because it connects to what I was doing, certifying others. A person who really influenced me greatly, her name is Megan, and she invited me out for coffee, and I thought she was fascinating. And she said to me, "Well, you facilitate training and you help consultants learn how to facilitate training better." So, and I said, absolutely. I help people lead meetings, run things where they're getting feedback from people, learning situations. And she said, what if you did that for one-way communication? And I was being totally snarky. And I said, yeah, I don't do that. It's two-way communication. And she said, what if I challenged you? And I went, oh, that's so interesting. So this idea of being able to help people amplify their voices when they're on a platform. We call it the iconic red dot. There's a big red piece of carpet that people are videotaped on, and they have to be under 18 minutes. We know they go viral online when they're 12 minutes or so. But I got involved with this for that challenge. But I also, as you know, a mother of three from the suburbs, I thought, what can I be doing in the important city of Minneapolis, Minnesota, to help my community? What can I be doing to volunteer something that I can do to help people's voices be raised? And so I've had the good fortune of helping about 65 TED Talks go virtual. I've met so many interesting people. So they have a message to share. And the goal of any TED Talk is to help people think, do, or feel differently because of something you've shared. I coached one of our youngest on the stage, a 19-year-old blind man who talked about resilience. I helped coach a death doula, a person who helps with hospice. And she actually used storytelling to compare and contrast this idea of what would it be like if we treated death the same exciting way that we treated pregnancy. And that's kind of a weird juxtaposition, but wouldn't it be nice if we stopped and we honored people and said, what do you want for yourself as you leave this world? How do we help you be comfortable? Who do you need to talk to? Who do you need to tell your news to? And she's doing incredible work, so that was wonderful to amplify. We had a child psychologist just last year that one of my past colleagues who's volunteering on TED Talks coached her directly, and she's a child, I'm going to say psychiatrist, who actually talked about what if we raised kids to be brave instead of anxious and afraid. And she has over 1 million views, so Big Ted picked that up. So it's been my privilege to be able to help coach these people and amplify voices. I've also been able to interview people. I have a friend who said, you do all these TED Talks. And I said, I don't. I like to help people tell their story, and I get to sit behind the scenes. But I've been invited to interview people. During COVID, I had the opportunity to interview Dr. Michael Osterholm, an epidemiologist from the University of Minnesota who was on the president's task force to help with COVID, and he was fascinating. We have a first African-American Supreme Court justice here in Minnesota who was also a Viking Minnesota Viking football player of the Purple People Eaters, Justice Allen Page. And I had the opportunity to interview him, as well as Jack Jablonski, who was a teenage hockey player here in Minnesota. We're the state of hockey, and he became a quadriplegic based on a bad hit in hockey. And what's he doing to offer resilience? So the stories are meaningful. The storytelling is meaningful, and I feel like it's a great privilege to be able to help people who want to tell a story and be filmed in front of a live audience and go viral.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And also the takeaway is before I knew that you did that, you if anybody has listened or watched a TED Talk, I mean these people are up there, they're confident, they're getting their message across,
Yeah,
not stumbling, uh, really captivating the audience.
yeah,
And I never thought there was a coach behind them as well. And so what does that look like? Do you
yeah.
coach on confidence? Do you coach on, is
Interesting.
it different for every speaker? I mean, what's
Yeah.
involved?
Thanks for asking. And I think TEDx Minneapolis is a bit of an anomaly, and this is an all TEDx anything is an all volunteer crew. It's a nonprofit, so we all volunteer our time, and so I'm standing on the shoulders of some really great volunteers at TEDx Minneapolis. But if you wanted to give a TED Talk, you don't have to come with your TED Talk done. You just pitch an idea and you submit an idea. So a curator, here's your pitch. So you do a little video, you upload it to your TEDx Minneapolis website, for example. These people then research the idea to make sure it's new or it's novel or what it is. They oftentimes interview the person too, ready to ensure they're coachable. Are they interested in being coached? There are people who come in and say, no, I've given this talk for forever, are not TED speakers. We're really trying to craft something that is the individual's universal truth. So what is that talk you want to give that encapsulates everything that you're thinking that people can do, think, or feel something different about? And you get videotaped in what I call the zombie apocalypse outfit. You're going to see that outfit again and again and again over the next 10 to 15 years. So choose it wisely. But we definitely coach everybody to have elements that I'm sure you're familiar with, Nina, but maybe your audience. Clarity. So we do a lot of instructional design. How do you get the right chunks so that there's a headline in each of the sections so that there's a meaning and the thing flows. And once you get that right, then you add grounding. So grounding comes after clarity. Once you say, okay, this section is about, I'm coaching a firefighter right now who's going to be amazing on August 4th here in Minneapolis. So he's talking about the weight of the firefighting uniform. And he's actually wearing the uniform out front. And then he's going to talk about bravery and what it means. So once you get those chunks together and the person feels like that's what I was pitching, I just had some help in making it a great presentation, making it, I'll give you an example. This firefighter is a wonderful author, but he hasn't written a speech before. So this was an easy transition for us to help him. So then you get coached on shortening it up so that it's 12 minutes, 13 minutes. And then you get coaching on presentation skills. So how do you move? Do you have an annoying hair flip that keeps going on? Because then we're going to make you pin your hair back. Do you move around too much? You have to stand on the dot for the director to be able to get your TED Talk. Do you move for emphasis? Have you memorized it? That's what makes everybody a little jiggy, is that they have to memorize it. And the answer is yes. So back to great presence and great presentations across leaders or TED Talks, I would tell you, you have to be prepared. And I think there was a training guru here in the Twin Cities that used to say proper preparation prevents poor performance. How's that for 6 P's or how many P's there were? But it's basically you memorize your talk and then you deliver it like it's the first time you've ever delivered it with the audience in mind. So that audience is there while you're filming, and they're very supportive of people. If you flub a line, we teach you to go and then restart. And the audience usually is, yeah, you got this. And so it's a very supportive environment to film a TED Talk in front of a live audience, and then that video gets edited and sent out to Big TED for approval, and then it goes viral.
Wow.
So anyone who has a voice, has a message, can really say, I want to do something like this because we'll help you be successful. This group of volunteers is amazing. The group of coaches that I have that are part of my team are just wonderful contributors to helping somebody say in one sentence what most people might say in five. How's that? You've got to find powerful sentences. You've got to find powerful grounding stories because people remember the story, not necessarily that one thing you said. Back to your point about presence. How do we coach executives to have presence? We teach them to tell stories.
Yeah, so many takeaways with what you just said there for any owner, leader,
Cool.
employee. I was coaching an individual earlier this morning, and they said I don't mind talking in small groups, but I don't want to give a presentation in front of a large group. And based on the type of position that this person was vying for, I'm like, well, that's a key thing you're going to need. I mean, you just
Yeah.
are going to have to do that. And, how do we get you comfortable? And there's so many that applies outside of the forum you just explained with the
Mm-hmm.
TEDx or TED Talks. It's public speaking.
It's public speaking.
Yeah, and presentations. So thank you for that.
But it's interesting, Nina, this idea that people think that they have to be amazingly ready. I would say to you that anybody who says to you they're not nervous if they get on the platform is lying. I'm sorry. Nervousness creates a good energy, a zeal, something that is just magnetic between that, and so you use it positively, and it's how you use that. And we do coach people, even if you're nervous, never announce it.
Yeah.
So that poor person, I was just at a wedding and somebody said, I'm really nervous to give this talk. And all I could think of was, you just had the whole room worry about you. Now we're worried about you. So never announce you're nervous, just use it positively.
Yeah.
He talks about involving the audience in whatever kind of talk you're doing, or executive presentation or larger group, and think of your presentation like a big, I'm going to call it a beach ball. And it's your ball, but you tap it deftly to a person in the room, then they hit it out. Maybe I bonk it over to you, Nina, and you're embarrassed because it went over your head. Ellen's not a good hitter of the beach ball. And just for that moment, you owned that ball and had to go get it. We grappled with something. And then the point of this for a presenter is that beach ball belongs to you. It always comes back to you. It's your ball. And that has always stayed with me as a really cool metaphor for presentation, because you should own your room. Anybody who's giving an executive presentation or a workshop or an on-site, when the first person comes on, you should go say, hi, I'm Lisa-Marie, I'm your presenter today. Shake their hand while they're getting coffee. Hi, I'm Lisa-Marie, and we're talking today about blah, blah, blah. Hi. You're basically saying, I own this room. This is my room. That beach ball is mine. And when you have an ability to give it away to people, to play with their ideas, you know it's going to come back to you because it's your ball. So I think that's a healthy way to think about energy, nervousness, giving away power, being able to hear people when you deliver a presentation of sorts. And I got that from Ron Hoff in that beautiful book, I Can See You Naked.
Love it. Yes, and you absolutely can say that. I'm glad you did. I've got it written down
Cool.
here. So,
And if I can, and one other thing I can say, don't use a podium. A podium covers you up. A podium gives you something to hide behind. A podium just creates a talking head. Tell the hotel you don't want the podium. You want a bar stool and a mic. Anyway, I got
I
lots of these.
love that.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
No, that's great. There's so much of this that you think about that even goes into meetings with clients. I mean, customers. I mean, the confidence that,
Yeah.
the body language, like you say, the barrier that's there.
Barrier.
So,
Or even how people write their speech. Some people tend to, and we get this a lot in TED Talks, people have typed out what they want to say. No, no. Draw a mind map. Draw a picture of it. Grab some post-it notes. Stick them on the wall of what do you want to say, because you get stymied by, I wrote it down and typed it with my little fingers. Have it come out your hand and be able to see it in a picture. There's research that says you will not forget your place if you've created a facilitator's mind map. You will forget your place if you typed it out and have a script. You end up reading it, unfortunately.
so great. So great. Yeah. And I think anymore with note takers and AI and everything, it's so
AI.
easy to just talk into that, have it spit it back.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know, so I went to culinary school a few years ago when I left corporate America before I started my consulting business. And we had to handwrite our recipes.
Love that.
They felt we memorized better by doing that than typing them up and printing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was just thinking of one other thing, when someone introduces you, here's Nina Lund. Welcome, Nina. And then you go, well, thank you, Lisa-Marie, for introducing. Don't do that. Start by saying a question. What would it mean to us if we did blah, blah, blah? Start your presentation. Don't do the perfunctory, thank you, today I'm going to talk about. You should have a purpose, process, and payoff in mind, but why don't you start with a compelling question that encapsulate what you're trying to talk about? That connects to what's the purpose? I love that they made you write those recipes because you're thinking about the whole. You're thinking about how it comes out your hand. You're thinking about how to make it yours. That's a fascinating metaphor.
Yeah. You're thinking about what you need too.
Yeah,
That's what I like. What did you have to prepare? So you're
yeah,
writing down your ingredients.
yeah.
You're thinking about what equipment you need to make whatever you're doing. So
It's
yeah,
really cool.
wow, lots of great takeaways. I'm
Cool.
super excited about that. You talked about storytelling, and I just would like to explore that a little bit more as well.
Sure.
That just seems so important uh, in all aspects of life in general, but even leadership, or especially leadership, I guess. And
Yeah.
you've got the storytelling and the presentations, but what about the day to day?
Mm. So storytelling is the name of the game. The ability to, we call it grounding. So we ground it in something, a metaphor. Let's call it a story, a statistic, a quote. It tells your audience something that they can hold on to. So, for example, you just talked about writing a recipe, and we talked about what that meant. Maybe people will remember handwriting a recipe. I was goofing on the idea of moving to New York City in fashion as the mothership. A lot of people will remember words that make you chuckle a bit, or even a story of, I went to coffee with somebody who said to me, what would you think if you did one-way communication? No, I don't do that.
Mhm.
No, I don't do that. Or the ball. Those in and of itself are amplifying the content. So whenever you can, if you can find a metaphor, and the goofier and the weirder they are, is is better. People will actually test better when they can tie your content. I used to run a facilitator workshop that basically said, so you went through, Nina, like the certification you went to. Do you remember a story that I crochet? And people would go, oh, yeah, I totally remember that. What were we talking about? We were talking about positive psychology. It's just an example of things people remember. And a presenter doesn't tell a story to tell something about themselves. They tell a story to help the audience remember it or ground it or apply it themselves. There's so many presenters, and if I went back to TED Talks or even facilitators in our world, there are a lot of folks who don't think about the audience. And they're fun to listen to sometimes, as long as it's not a I know something you don't know kind of feel to it. But people here can use it, or here's an idea or a tip that you might possibly use, as opposed to the element of I'm just being clear. That's really boring. The ability to be grounded and use metaphors tells the audience why you're there, and you're there to help them apply what it is you're talking about. And I think
Yes.
that's a big difference. I think experts call that being instructor-centered versus learner-centered. And if you can remember there's an audience listening to you that's thinking about this, and give them a tip or something, then it's participant-centered. And that's, you can hear it. And when there's a presenter that's up there and they've got you in mind, it's drums and trumpets, man. When it's a person who's up there going, let me explain to you this, and because you're starting at square one. No adult starts at square one. We all
Right.
have lived a life, so don't give me customer service 101 training. Give me customer service. What have you experienced, Lisa-Marie? And I can tell you, well, just yesterday I had a problem with my insurance agent, blah, 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 blah. And then everybody has a stake in it, and the story becomes the learners. The story becomes memorable.
Yeah, I love that. And you made the distinction too of not also telling a story that is all seems self-promoting.
The story you tell should be one that exemplifies the content, and you've prepared it. And you're telling the story as you prepared it, but like you're telling it for the first time. So in facilitator training, once facilitators design their training or talk about their training or find their grounding metaphors, oftentimes participants say things like, oh, I know you so well. I feel like I know you so well. Well, what do you know? You know this and this and this, but actually I told you this and this and this so that you would learn that. What was that story about? Oh, yeah, it was about conflict at work. Boom. Oh, yeah, that was about positive psychology or whatever it is.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So you had mentioned, so you've got the event coming up August 4th?
August 4th at beautiful Orchestra Hall in Minnesota, and they'll be on the stage that, boy, Yo-Yo Ma, Joshua Bell. I just think about all the celebrities that have been in the green room. There's just something absolutely magical about being on the Minnesota Orchestra Hall stage, and they will be in front of an audience of around 700 people being filmed, and that's August 4th. It's a Tuesday. We've got volunteers who are manning it. There'll be food trucks. It's pretty fun. It's pretty epic, but I hate to say it, I'm focusing on the videos that we make. We want to
Okay.
make a video that goes viral. The event's way fun, but thank you for mentioning August 4th, 2026.
Okay, great. And that is, so is TEDx Minneapolis annually then?
Yes, there are some X's, and this is a great question. There are some X's that just do an annual event. We tend to do one that's big, and we use the summer, and then it's a big evening, and then we kind of go on hiatus and get ideas, and we make those decisions again at the beginning of the year. There are a lot of TEDx's that do what we call salons or boutiques. So you could have a women's voice boutique. Or sometimes there's even a part of your license that allows you to hold a viewing party where maybe you go in a corporate office and you play the top five that from 2026. And I used to do that for interns. We had an internship program where we had young people starting their careers saying, I need to learn about XYZ. So we curated different TED Talks from all across the world, and we played them, and then we discussed them. That's another wonderful way to develop people is you can access a TED Talk. You can use that in any kind of training that your audience might be doing, and then you can talk about it, and that just extends the voice, extends the learning. Well, the TEDx thing is a big deal. I have to say, TalentTelligent is growing, and the more we work with organizations to help them make their talent management more tangible and behavioral, that's such a privilege. So I'm always doing certifications, and the fall is a big time for succession planning. So when people are saying, who are my successors, that's always an important part of the puzzle for us. And personally, I have three grown children that come to our Minnesota cabin and water ski and float on, tubes and things like that. And it's funny, I'm the mother of three boys, and I always said, oh, I just didn't get that girl. I was never blessed with a girl. But these guys have brought three beautiful, intelligent women into my life that is just a privilege and an honor to spend time with them and enjoy them. I didn't know that parenting really went into the adult parenting, and boy, is that fun. So that's kind of where my head's at after the 4th of July.
It's so user friendly. So even if you don't have a practitioner to get certified and go through it, certainly Next Generation HR, which is my HR consulting business, that's what we offer
Perfect.
to our clients as well. We've rolled out the full cycle, including 360 coaching, but also the development of the knowledge, skills, and attributes that are needed depending on the various positions.
There's a really good application here, and there are so many people who can't or don't have the wherewithal to develop people. And it would be really cool to be able to engage with someone like you and have you run a 360 hands off. You could have people developed by using a science-based 360, having an executive coach like Nina deliver that in, forgive me, a development transaction. But I do think that that's a great way to get some development happening, especially when you don't have resources like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such quality. Like we mentioned at the beginning, the theories, the methodology, all, you don't want to mess with that. So many people are like, well, just go to AI, and it's not validated.
It's
And
scraping. It's scraping Reddit. It's scraping Facebook. It's
it,
scraping anecdotes. It's scary. And you can do
it's
harm in talent management. You could really wreck someone's feeling.
absolutely, absolutely. And you and everybody at TalentTelligent are just such quality individuals,
Thank you.
always available to answer questions and provide guidance. So I'm thrilled for that. LM, it's been a pleasure visiting with you.
My
Uh,
pleasure. Good luck to
yeah,
all of your listeners. I think it's a wonderful way for you to spread the word and to bring people together. So thank you for the opportunity.
absolutely. I'm so excited. Now I am going to listen to the TEDx talks with a whole different mindset. I mean, I
Cool.
always get a lot out of them. Anyhow, LM, what's the best way for people to find you?
You can easily find me at talentelligent.com. And you can see the TEDx stuff on TEDxMinneapolis.com. And yeah, I think that's the best ways to get me. You can get me on email at lm.hanson@talentelligent.com. So it's easy, and I'm happy to help anybody who needs anything.
And you're also on LinkedIn
I'm
too.
on, yes, LinkedIn. That's a great, thank you for
Yeah.
reminding me. Yeah,
Yeah, that's great. All right. Well, LM, I'll let you enjoy the beautiful summer with your family.
yeah, it
And it's
was
been a
fun with you.
pleasure. I really appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks for the time.